Okay, Alex, I want to show you some subtraction problems here and give you a few tips as you subtract. So one of the things to understand about decimals is you're not really doing anything different than you subtracted since you were in first, second grade. The only thing you really have to think about is lining things up, and that's the big mistake if you're using this standard algorithm. Sometimes you can subtract these very easily, just like you could any subtraction problem. So let me show you some tips as I'm working through these. So if I want to subtract things with the standard algorithm, you'll notice on this one, 215 and 86 hundredths. I know to call it 86 hundredths because I can see 86 and the 6 is in the hundredths place. Minus 18 and 48 hundredths. All right, well, let me go through that one. All right, the first thing I'm going to recognize is obviously I'm going to have to do some shifting. Some people call it regrouping. Some people call like trading, borrowing. I call it shifting because I'm going to take that 10 and I'm going to shift it over. So instead of 6, I moved 10 over and now it becomes 16. And I can subtract that. All right, again, I recognize I'm going to have to do some shifting. So let me show you a kind of an odd little trick that someone showed me. So instead of thinking this is 21, I'm going to now make it 20. And I'm going to give that 10 over here. Let me go back there, because I know I lost some of you. It would be the same as if I shifted this. There'd be nothing left there. It'd become a 15, which makes this kind of like a 20. So let's keep it like that, since most of you are probably used to seeing that. So 15 minus 8 becomes a 7. And again, I think, oh, I got a 0. Well, if I look at this as a 20, what's 20 minus... What's 20 minus 1? 19. Okay, now I probably want to flip that to see if this is true. Is it true that 197 and 38 hundredths plus the 18 and 48 hundredths, does that give me my 215 and 86? Let's see. I got my 86 so far. Okay, and so what I set up there for my original problem is this. We started with 215, that was our largest number, and we basically split that and we said, okay, 197 and 38, and we've got 18 and 48. You may say, where are those numbers coming from? Here's where those numbers are coming from. Here's the 215, there's 215. We took, anytime you're subtracting, you're just taking numbers, and you're splitting them, breaking it apart. So we took that 215, we put it into two piles, 197 and 38 hundredths, and 18 and 48 hundredths. All right, let's do this one over here. Let me show you a wrong way to line this up. So here's probably the mistake I see people do. Just line up numbers. And actually, that's not even where, let me erase that. That's not where the decimal was. Okay, do you see how that's a problem? One, you're looking at this and you're thinking, well, how do I subtract this? There's nothing like up here. But two, even if I switched this, even if I decided to do it this way, I'm not subtracting the same thing. That'd be like if we had this subtraction problem. 215 minus 19, and I decided just to do this. That doesn't work. I can't just, I'm not subtracting the same things. So as I subtract this one, let's do it in green, I need to set it up like this. I need to be sure that this is my ones, subtracting ones from ones. This is why place value really matters with decimals. And I'm subtracting tenths, and I'm subtracting hundredths. Okay, now you're going, well, what do I do now? Because there's nothing up there. I know, I'll just make it a 5. Well, in this case, it ends up being a 5, but that's not what you do. We can put a 0 here. There's no value in that spot. There's nothing. A 0 shows you there's no place value. Put a 0 back here if I want, and a 0 back here, and a 0 here, and a 0 here. Could I put a 0 up here? Sure. We just don't put zeros up there because they have no value. They don't mean anything. So can you put zeros behind the decimal? Absolutely. They have no value. In this case, we needed to subtract. So there's two ways I could look at this one. I could actually see 60 minus 45. If you know that, you know that it's 15. I know I lost some of you there. So let me go back and do the shifting thing. I'm going to shift this over. I still get that 15. Okay, look at this. If I do you see that 20 minus 18? 20 tenths minus 18 tenths. When you can start to read decimal place values, you start to be able to subtract in kind of new and interesting ways. Again, hopefully if I didn't lose you, then let me show you how it's still going to end up being 2. I'm going to shift. What's 10 minus 8? 2. What's 1 minus 1? 0. So when I look at this, I realize I've got 215 thousandths is my answer. When I think about that as a bar model, started with 2 and 6 hundredths. I've got this much on one side, and I've got this much on the other. These two work together to create that number. Let's do one last one. Okay, this is one that we're going to see on our check-in on Friday. What do you do? Well, if we look like what we were just working on, switch to purple. Okay, all we're doing, we're missing this number right here. What is that? That comes from up here. Okay, to figure that out, we're going to subtract. We know that we're starting with 8 and 34 hundredths. We're going to subtract 5 and 86 hundredths. So I start with this much. From my bar, I'm taking this much. We can just figure out what's left right here by using subtraction. So when you see a problem like this, don't be too stumped. We're just going to use subtraction to figure out what is left. Okay, so we're going to go up here. I'm going to do a little bit of shifting. Oh, looks like I'll do a little bit more shifting. Now whenever we shift, we're moving shifting 10 over. So in this case, I shifted 10 tenths. 12 minus 8 leaves me 4 tenths. There's my decimal point. 7 minus 5 is 2. All right, so as you subtract today, if you want to try to use the standard algorithm, you're going to really subtract just like you've always done. Pay attention to the decimal point. Think about your place value. Okay, let's go Hawks.